Okay, we have Mike Ruppert on the line, who I met, I am thinking it's at least 3 years ago at a 9/11 event here in New York City. I don't know if you remember, but
Probably more like 8 years ago, but that's okay.
well, actually, I lived in Boulder, Colorado through like '09. I kind of moved back to New York around '09, '10. So it had to be somewhere in that vicinity.
That would have been 2010 down. Yes, I was there. It wasn't an all 9/11 event, but it was a good event.
Right at the 54 Walker Street.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, your documentary Collapse, where you talk a lot about peak oil.
Yeah.
And you're a big advocate on like survival training, and your radio show, the Lifeboat Hour, really encouraging people to.
Well, I would not call myself an advocate of survival training. That's a school of thought which separates people by teaching them that they can go learn how to live in the woods, hold up enough baked beans, and somehow survive the rest of this. That's not really what I do.
Okay. So let's get that straight right now.
Okay.
So what is it exactly that you want people to know?
Well, at this point in time, it's getting pretty clear and pretty easy to simplify down to some simple statements. People need to realize that with mathematical scientific certainty now confirmed by God knows how many, 25 peer-reviewed studies, Professor Guy McPherson, Professor Emeritus of University of Arizona, has it clearly that the human race is facing inevitable extinction by the year 2030 as a result of climate collapse and temperature rise. There are no other more important issues at the moment. The only thing that can prevent our extinction, and again, this science is absolutely solid now, not counting 13 or 14 positive feedback loops, such as methane columns arising from the tundra, melting ice, allowing blue water to absorb much more solar energy, which melts the ice faster. There are 13 of those loops. Not counting those, even the most conservative climate scientists agree that we, the human race and the planet, are certain now to experience a 3 degrees centigrade temperature rise, and 2 degrees centigrade is lethal. It is an extinction event. And we are looking to be there by 2030, which is only 17 years away.
Yeah, it's pretty scary. I recently just watched Gasland 2, which was pretty depressing. I mean, after watching it, if it is in fact, accurate, I after I was done watching it, I pretty much said, that's it, it's over, it's too late. It's over. We're done. It
is not too late.
I hope not.
For a great many things.
Don't watch Gasland 2. With all, they showed like tens of thousands of these fracking wells, even in places in California along the fault line. They're drilling. It sounds pretty suicidal to me.
Fracking is one of 3 or 4 things going on right now that is also contributing to one of the greatest threats to human life and all life on the planet, which is consumption of fresh water. Fracking consumes per well millions of gallons of fresh water, which is rendered permanently toxic. Right. And there are tens of millions of wells, or tens of thousands, perhaps there are millions of wells around the world, sucking hundreds of billions of gallons of fresh water to produce natural gas at a net loss on energy return for energy invested. But that and tar sands in Canada, which uses fresh water, which is turned into steam by burning natural gas. There's a nice feedback loop. washes the bitumen out of the tar sands to the tune of, again, hundreds of billions of gallons of fresh water per year. They're draining the Great Lakes to do that. They're draining aquifers all over the country. And then ethanol production requires 149 gallons of fresh water to produce 1 gallon of ethanol for gasoline. As a result of these and other really suicidal practices, the world is running out of fresh water very, very quickly. What we are at the cusp of is what is called, in the peak oil movement that I was a great part of, that I was a significant part of for many years, is called the die-off, population overshoot being corrected, and we are seeing that now compounded by things like climate refugees and environmental refugees, and the unending and out-of-control radioactive poisoning from Fukushima in Japan. This has brought us to a major crossroads, a major moment of truth, which is here and now, where the human race is forced to make a decision as to who we are and why we're here and what we stand for. And all of that ties in spiritually, very closely with events like Edward Snowden, which is thoroughly rocking the United States' position in the world. And there are signs of a global uprising and a global awakening. And if you go back to the documentary Collapse, I told a story about the 100th monkey, and I think we are closing in on the 100th monkey.
I mean, I think it's pretty clear why the elite think that they're here. I mean, there's no confusion about that, but definitely the rest of us need to ask ourselves, right, why we're here.
And what's important.
Exactly. Just going along for a paycheck that every time you turn around is worth less and less. And there's no fulfillment. I mean, where's the fulfillment?
Yes, it's like chewing on a bone that has no meat on it and wondering why you're still hungry. And that's pretty much exactly what's happening for those people who are trapped in the old paradigm or the old consciousness, which says that by consuming and by getting, one achieves peace, happiness, or contentment. I mean, everything is breaking down at a dramatic pace, and we're at the point, truly, where I said in the documentary Collapse, where there was this great background music, dramatic, two intersecting lines. You can't eat money. You can't put it in your gas tank. Money means nothing now, and we are at the point where planet Earth can no longer deliver the resources demanded by all of the debt, which is what money is, that has been printed. In other words, money is now at the place of being seen for being absolutely useless.
I don't think, I've been, I had Bill Still on, he talks about, in the Money Masters, and he's got The Secret of Oz. And I mean, people don't even really understand, because they've been so conditioned into believing that money does have value, and they don't even realize that it is in fact a note of debt.
Well, that's true, but I also think, because I'm very plugged in around the world, I have a radio show every week of my own on the Progressive Radio Network.
Right.
I have, across 3 Facebook pages, I have about 20,000 friends. My public figure page, my personal page, and the page for the movie.
Yeah.
But I have a very good reach, and I'm very plugged into events around the world. And I am no longer of the opinion that almost everybody doesn't get this. I am so aware from Taksim Square in Ankara and Tahrir Square in Cairo, and to major uprisings in Brazil, in Bulgaria, where a miracle is taking place in Bulgaria now, and that a great many people are waking up. And I no longer even speak from an apologetic standpoint about, and nor do I complain about people who don't get it. I said in the documentary Collapse, I said, if you're camping out with a bunch of people in the woods, and a bear attacks the camp, you do not have to be faster than the bear. You only have to be faster than the slowest campers.
Yeah.
So I do not worry about slow campers anymore because there are so many fast campers, and I find myself running with them, and that's pretty comfortable.
Yeah, because I mean, we're definitely not going to wake everyone up, and you can't. I mean, you can't kill yourself trying to wake people up also, because then you're just going to be depleting and wasting your own energy.
That's correct.
And then getting yourself into a deficit, which that's not a healthy way of relating. That also ends up becoming like a codependent way of relating to people. And
Right on.
Yeah, exactly. I hear a lot of people say like, "Oh, we have to wake people up. We have to wake people up," and you really can't wake people up. They have to. This is something that I learned years ago, feeling responsible for other people, and if I couldn't get through to them, it was somehow my fault. And that's a trap. That is a trap.
I spent 21 years in 12-step recovery, and I still live those 12 steps. But one of the best lines that I ever heard there was, "Climb down off the cross. We need the lumber."
Yeah.
And you can't save everybody, and this is, if you want to take it from a Jungian, Taoist, Buddhist, Native American spirituality perspective, this is a free will planet where the soul gets to choose its own path and learn its own lessons. And this is the time when we all have to stand back and decide what lessons we have to learn, and also to respect the lessons that other souls have chosen to learn, whether we think they're idiots or not.
Exactly. No, I totally agree, and I'm glad you brought up the 12 steps, because I was just speaking about them when Margaret Flowers was on, that because I studied about the 12 steps, and codependency is now like a countrywide epidemic, because it actually came to my mind when I was listening about the city of Detroit going bankrupt, which is just ridiculous. This whole concept of a town being bankrupt with money that they probably get lent, that they make up out of thin air, and then charge interest on and try to profit, and now a whole town is going bankrupt.
Detroit is the first city over, I think, 1 million or 2 million people to have gone bankrupt. Actually, about 25 cities have already done so since 2008. So, and this was to be expected. This is what I predicted years before the 2008 crisis emerged. This is called collapse. This is called exactly what I described in the movie.
So
go ahead.
I was going to ask you, how do you see things going? Say whatever, 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, how do you see it all panning out?
Well, I see human extinction in 17 years. That's what I see. And that's what people need to comprehend. And that is not to say that we should run out and get everything we can get right now. That's nonsense.
Yeah, that's what we've been doing already.
If we go back to the 12-step concept, which is great, what the 12-step programs are all about is saying, absent a spiritual awakening, absent a massive, drastic change in consciousness, there is, quote unquote, no human power which can solve the crisis. And that is exactly where we are now on this planet. By any Cartesian three-dimensional standard, there is no fix for Fukushima, there is no fix for global warming. There is no fix for the economic mess. There is no fix for peak oil. There is no substitute for that. There is nothing of the 3D world that we have been taught is the only world that can save not only ourselves, but the extinction event looks to be by 2050, if I'm quoting Guy McPherson correctly, all life on the planet.
If there's one, you just listening to you, it reminded me of something that I encounter quite often. Is this sort of, I feel like people really have a hard time comprehending the concept of like done, empty, finished, no more, the Titanic is sinking.
Yeah.
It's like they really do have this, be positive, just like as if the earth, as if other people, whatever, are just unlimited, that there are just these unlimited resources, that there are not consequences that are going to come due, eventually, kind of thing. And I feel like we've been decapitated. I'm a big yoga practitioner, and I really love the practice. I think if people understood it, because it's all about, reconnecting your mind back to your body, kind of the way that it was when we came into this world. The mind and body functioned in sync as one. But it's because we've gotten distracted from the way that we feel, distracted from being who we really are, distracted from expressing who we really are, and put into an artificial program in our heads. And now we just live in our heads, and our heads are basically treating our bodies kind of the way that we treat the earth.
I am extremely and deeply involved in Native American spirituality.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, I just went to a sweat lodge a few hours ago for a sister who came down from a vision quest.
Good for you.
What we discussed, I gave a speech in Portland, Oregon on September 11th, 2011, the 10-year anniversary of 9/11. I wrote a book about that called Crossing the Rubicon. And in that speech, I talked about, and this dovetails greatly with the great work of Charles Eisenstein, who wrote a fabulous book called Sacred Economics, and he's out there burning the midnight oil on the circuit talking because people are hungry for what he's got to say.
Amen.
But in that speech, I spit on a God called Jehovah. I spit on a God that wrote in the first chapter of Genesis that mankind was separate from everything else, that mankind had dominion, was superior, and that it was our job to manage and plunder the planet. That spiritually is the source of all of the problems right now, which stem from that belief that mankind is somehow not connected to any of all this other stuff that's going on.
Does it actually say plunder? It actually says to plunder?
No, the Bible doesn't say plunder. It says be fruitful and multiply, and and you shall have dominion over the fowls, and and that mankind should go out and manage, run, plunder. It doesn't say plunder, but that's the concept. Genesis 1. Okay. It's all right there. And that is a programming of the human mind and the human spirit that came into being, let's say, 5,300, 5,000, 6,000 years ago. And all of the indigenous spiritual practices on the planet, the ones that have survived, also coincidentally the ones that have been systematically persecuted by the Christian church. The Inquisition started by persecuting Gnostic Christians and Christians who believed in the unity of all things. That's where it wasn't against Muslims initially. But all of all of the traditions that have survived across all the continents, I mean, in African, Bushman, Kalahari's spirituality to Australia, to Turtle Island, North America, Latin America, all of the indigenous wisdoms which predate that time when this concept of dominion came into being, all understand that we are one with this planet on which we live,
Right.
which we're killing right now, and which is getting ready to kill us.
Exactly.
And all of those traditions, which became the number one, public enemy number one of the Christian faith, and all of their faiths, pursuing infinite growth, they all say the same thing, and they are the traditions. And yogic tradition also completely honors,
Right.
the unity of mind, body, and spirit, but also connectedness to all things.
Right. Do no harm is a big saying in the yoga community.
And so here we are at this place where we look at the fundamental issue, and the fundamental issue that is killing all of us right now is that infinite growth is not possible on a finite planet. Period.
Do you agree with the idea that there are too many people on the planet? Because I mean, actually, I could say that it's more the quality of people that are on the planet rather than the quantity.
No, I don't like the phrase "too many" because that would put people who want to criticize me saying I'm Malthusian and I want to kill people. There are 6+ billion people on this planet today that did not exist before there was oil and natural gas.
Right.
6 billion for the course of a couple of million years, as long as the official accounts. Having a major windstorm here. I'm in the Rockies in Colorado. You may hear some noise. Human population was steady for several million years at just under 1 billion people. And then it was not until oil and natural gas were discovered, these cheap, free, abundant sources of energy, that human population took off vertically. And ascended over the course of a couple of hundred years to 7 billion people, which is what we have right now. That number of people on this planet is not sustainable. There are 10 calories of hydrocarbon energy in every calorie of food. We published that at my newsletter From the Wilderness back in 2002. But now those numbers have gone up significantly. So we are burning more and more energy, which is going away to less efficiently feed a global population that is growing by about 250,000 people a day. This is called overshoot.
I feel like, right, everything that you're saying is what has created, corporations like Monsanto and GMO food, who say that they have to make this food in order to feed everyone. I mean, it's easy to, to blame, the bankers or, right, these companies and these corporations, but we have kind of created that.
Well, I think, again, I would probably suggest climb down off the cross. We need the lumber. Don't blame us on that. Okay? The food that Monsanto is feeding us is poison. And they are not doing us a favor. Now,
right.
over the course of my career, I've established clearly many times.
I mean, people have accepted that as their excuse. Well, we got to feed all these people, so we can't, agriculture needs a boost or whatever. We have to make these artificial seeds to feed all these people. I mean, that's...
The toxic food that Monsanto is putting out is how the elites plan on weeding out the population, by poisoning them.
Exactly. Exactly. Right, but it's it is like this weird sort of paradox kind of thing,
We
it,
didn't do anything. We are prisoners, human beings. I totally agree. If I had a Mount Rushmore, I would put George Orwell, Terence McKenna, and Aldous Huxley on it, and maybe Graham Hancock. Okay, but George Orwell had it right. The
yeah,
human race we are all cattle. That's all we are. And what's so profitable for the system that is dying in front of us is that we serve as our own jailers.
right,
We imprison ourselves.
exactly.
We are led to assume responsibility for shit that pardon my French, that we didn't do. And then we turn around and somehow try to assume this personal responsibility. We're slaves. We're prisoners. We were bred and multiplied to extract wealth from this planet. And now that the planet has been looted, we are useless, as Henry Kissinger would say, eaters.
It's that same mentality that I completely agree with, where they privatize the gains and socialize the losses. It's like, right, they blame the people, for when things go wrong, but when things go right, they keep all the gain for themselves.
And that was the plan.
Yeah. And, right. So they'll blame the little guy. Like, if you can't get ahead, it's your fault. It's your fault. But like, the little guy's working himself to death, and they're stealing all his money, but then blaming him because he can't get anywhere.
And it's much more insidious than that in many ways. And here's one of the ways it plays out that has so frustrated me my whole life. I have to give great credit to my friend Derek Jensen, who sees it much the same way, and is probably equally frustrated with it. Is that you get some guy who says, "Well, I'm doing my part." He's some liberal guy, right? And he goes out and he buys a Prius, and he starts composting, and he starts growing a garden, and he he does all the stuff that a lot of people have done. And he says, "Well, I'm doing my part." And what I would say, and I'm sure Derek would say the same thing, is BS. You're not doing your part at all, because you are not doing a thing to stop the industrial production, the nuclear facilities, the fracking, the commercial industrial growth, consumption of resources. You're just sitting back and you're just ignoring the problem by trying to do a few things to make yourself feel better, because all of the poison that's out there in the world is coming from industrial activity. And yet, poor little lefty person, is stuck there. Well, gee, I must not be doing enough in my own life. And the point I want to make is, until you take on the real problem, you're not doing anything. But also, people have been led to believe that it's our fault. It's not our fault.
I mean, you don't think the people have any responsibility?
Oh, sure. The ones who consume endlessly, yes. But they also have no awareness of any kind. But that's not the point. Even if they stop, X percentage of them woke up tomorrow and stopped consuming, this big industrial beast of infinite growth would still be out there bringing 250,000 new people onto the planet every day and training them all to be consumers.
It's really unfortunate that, right, one of my things that really pisses me off is, people are talking about it. Aaron Russo mentioned it in his Freedom to Fascism documentary about the deliberate breakdown of the family system. So, because they couldn't tax half the population before, and then the system was going to raise the kids.
Yeah.
And that I believe, and that really pisses me off. I mean, I'm a really big advocate, again, like on, relationships, healthy relationships. I mean, I grew up in a divorced family. I pretty much have been on my own since I was really young. And I mean, family is very, very important. I mean, knowing how to relate. I mean, like it's going to sustain us. I mean, without good relationship skills, good communication, being, I really do find a lot of people do not know how to relate. They have more of a, take kind of a attitude and
Yes.
not a giving kind of an attitude. It's like they literally don't know how to have an exchange. They don't know how to have an even exchange. They come into situations looking to just, it's all about them, and they're screwing themselves by not taking care. You have to be good to people if you want them to be good to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally encounter it a lot where, I feel like one of my flaws is I think I give too much, and I have to kind of be a little bit careful about that because I can't always like afford it, not just financially, but just emotionally. And I don't always really, get back. Like I don't have anybody sometimes to lean on. And yet I'm over there like, doing, for others. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I'm just gonna, like deplete myself. And then, heaven forbid, you kind of like look, I'm just talking like purely emotionally, to rely on. I feel as though we live in a world where you're not allowed to show any weakness. Everybody expects you to be strong all the time.
Well, that's funny because the greatest power that I have found is, in terms of dealing with people in this world, is the power of a tribe or community. And in the way that I live, and the way that I'm seeing so strongly displayed in this awakening that's taking place, is that we are capable of being weak, of being scared, and of saying so. None of us have a big red S painted on our chest, and the fact is that no one, and I said this clearly in the movie too, no one will survive as an individual.
Right.
I am, I've lectured, I've given probably 80, 90 lectures in 9 countries over the course of my career, not including many colleges and universities here in North America, but, maybe a decade ago, people would ask me questions about, well, where's the best place to move to? Now, it wasn't clear that the climate collapse was going to happen this dramatically and this lethally, this quickly. But, we would talk about it then, and I had concluded that Latin America probably stood the best chance of being the place to survive because it was the most geographically isolated. It had the best mix and remaining abundance of natural resources, but that's for Latin American people. It's not for us to go move
Where
there.
did you say? I'm sorry. What location did you say?
Latin America.
Oh.
South America.
Okay.
And to a certain extent Mexico and Central America as well. But it is not for everybody to move there and go take their stuff. And the great lesson that I learned, I spent 4 months in Venezuela in 2006 during the Pat Tillman expose. After my computers were smashed in Ashland, Oregon, my offices were burglarized, I was threatened,
Really?
and CIA poisoned me while I was in Caracas. But when I came home, I was aware of a couple of things, was that nothing replaces no geographic location anywhere in the world. If you're thinking about just picking up and finding a place to move to, you're an idiot, because you will not find there what you need most, which is community, which you can find where you are. You can't go be a stranger someplace. No one will survive on their own. There is such enormous power in community and in family. And I'm old and I'm tired of moving. I've been to 13 countries and I'm just tired of moving.
Right.
But I would much rather be in one of the least hospitable places physically on the place of the earth, on the earth with people that I love and who are my tribe.
Right. I mean, if you are to survive, you have to be around people that are aware of what's going on. Like you're not going to survive if you're amongst, the unaware.
Which goes back to not wasting your time on trying to convince or persuade people who don't get it at this point.
Exactly.
Not worth it.
Right. I wanted, like, one thing that I kind of feel is that without even realizing it, like crony capitalism, I know we have to we only have a few minutes left. It has made us unnatural. The way that we function is unnatural. I'm just always thinking about the way that the body would operate if it was allowed to operate, fully the way that nature intended, not just physically, but also emotionally. And that the way that we are programmed at early ages, to not feel what we feel, right? You can't make mistakes. People do not want to admit that they're wrong. I encounter that a lot.
So what, even if they admit, again, I am not looking for people to persuade. Well, to a certain extent, I am, and that's my life. I'm a scout, and I've been telling good stories and giving good reports for many, many decades now. But I don't care if somebody admits that they're wrong. That's not going to improve my life. I'm not seeking to win anything. Let those that have ears hear and let those that have eyes see, but don't waste your time, and welcome those who wake up. But I have no interest in making somebody who's vehemently denying at this point. There's just no time for that anymore.
Right. It just goes to show you the hold that the system has on people. I mean, it's not easy to penetrate that conditioning of just like that unnatural way of being in the world, where people, they never challenge their beliefs, they never challenge what they were taught.
They're being challenged right now.
Yeah.
And you see, nothing in that world is working anymore. The infinite growth world and people living that way, we have seen no improvement in any conditions around the world since 2008. No government in the world is making life better for any of their people in any country of the world. In Egypt, for example, which has just had a second revolution, if you will, it's not possible by borrowing money to feed the Egyptian people who will starve, and people are starving now.
All right.
Now, the human race has been put in a position now where it is abundantly clear that doing more of what you were doing that got you into this place is not going to solve the problem.
Exactly.
Period. So
Right.
The time now is right for a change. Human consciousness has been, if you will, or is being beaten into a state of reasonableness, where back to the wall, facing a situation of life and death, a choice is coming: either live by spiritual means, in other words, recognizing the connectedness of everything that exists and honoring that, or living the way you were living and accepting the consequences. And see, and what I'm happy about, and this is where I put my energy, and it's what I see, is that this awakening is happening with amazing speed right now.
Oh, well, that's good to know. It looks like we have maybe just under a minute left, and I don't want us to get cut off. I wanted to thank you for being on, and keep up your great work. Hopefully we'll have more than 17 years, but we need to live in reality. It's a paradox. People turn away from the darkness, but it's actually by turning and really embracing the darkness that the light really does come. We have to live in reality, not keep turning away from it because it's ugly, because the more we do that, the more we're just going to be perpetuating it. And so it looks,
Mother Earth will be free and the human race will be free. And when people start totally comprehending that those are one and the same event, we are going to see these changes accelerate more quickly. And in the meantime, we might blow ourselves up. We are facing death, so this is a movie. Pass the popcorn, and let's do what we can. And remember, it's just a movie.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So we definitely have run out of time. I hope it's 8:00. Tune in next Tuesday. I'm trying. Oh, we have actually Dan DeBondi is on next Tuesday. Sorry, we do have another guest offhand. I forgot who it is. Jeff Durgan, I think, from We Are Change, Connecticut, is going to be on next Tuesday. Anyway, Godspeed.